Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Anessa and I'm an author from Toronto, Canada, and I publish under the pen name A.N. Sage. If you are new here, great news. We have just hit 3,000 subscribers on this channel, which is so exciting. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed. If you haven't already and you want to do that, go ahead and do that. But before you do, a little bit of what I like to do here. So being an author who has been both indie and traditionally published, I try to share my knowledge on this channel as much as I can. So anything I try out, anything new, tools that I use to help me with writing, mistakes I've made while writing, different ways I like to plot and plan my everyday, things that I do creatively, because I'm also a cover designer and a book coach, how I balance and juggle things around. Anytime I come up with a new way that teaches the craft, I try to share it here if I'm excited about it. And so I put out videos here every single week. So if that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, then make sure that you are subscribed and that you hit the bell notification. And join us here as we celebrate over 3,000 subscribers now, which is absolutely wild to me. When I first started this channel and there was only like 1 or 2 people who subscribed, I never thought we'd get this far. I love making videos here. It really gives me such a great creative outlet that I didn't have before. And as a creative, I'm sure you know, if you are an author or creative like me, then you know that we want different ways to be creative because it kind of like refills the well. And so this channel does that for me. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for subscribing. Now, before I get into the actual video, very quick note, I somehow, as per me, have managed to get sick. Literally a week before a very big book signing. I have a book signing coming up, by the way. If you are in the Square One, Mississauga area of Ontario, make sure you stop by on the Sunday that this video actually goes live. I want to be there until about 3 p.m. signing for this book right here, Devil in the French Press. So this is one of my paranormal cozy mysteries. This is the 4th in a series, and the series is actually set to finish up this year. But no worries, there will be other books. But I will be signing this book right here over in the Indigo at Square One, which is a huge deal. I'm so proud to have been part of that location. If you don't know about the location, it's Indigo is like a Barnes & Noble, but in Canada. And Square One is pretty much where they host like all of the big authors that come to visit. So it was a really big honor to be able to do a book signing there. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this book here. So if you're around, come visit me. But as I was saying, I got very sick. So now I am doing pretty much the bare minimum this week. I'm still writing, I'm still designing, but I'm taking my time and I'm resting. I slapped on some makeup just for this video. So I look alive and I don't look like a zombie, as my daughter, my 2-year-old, called me this morning. So I do have some makeup on. So I could film this video for you guys. But right before I did this, our car also had to be to go into the shop because there were some stupid issues with it. And so I thought it was a really great idea to run errands and to walk and get my new phone and get like a booster juice in the middle of a heat wave. It is 30 degrees outside. It feels like 35, I think 36, they're saying, something ridiculous. And I decided to walk. And I don't exercise. I am an out of shape, lazy little person. I like to sit down and write my little stories and draw my little pictures. And so exercise and me don't mix. They should, because I'm very unhealthy and I know that, and I'm not promoting that on this channel. Don't do what I do. However, this walk just took it out of me. So I am like quite glistening. I'm a wretched, sweaty fool, is what I'm trying to tell you. So excuse the appearance if it's a little bit off of normal. But with that out of the way, I do want to talk about something really fun. So as you know, I've mentioned before, I'm currently working on a new project. This is a Gothic romantasy. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because the genre is very different for me, because I write more lightweight, kind of cozy, paranormal mysteries. The darker Gothic part of it is heavily description based, and cozy mysteries are very description based, but the description of cozy mysteries is very light, it's fluffy, it's cute, it's cozy. In the Gothic, it is darker, it's mysterious, especially in this book that I'm writing, especially when there's romantasy involved and fantasy elements and all of that. And so I wanted to talk about writing description because it's very different for every genre, but I do believe that there are some kind of interlocking elements that you can use and tips that you can use just to get yourself started in writing description. Description is difficult for many authors, myself including. I am very great at writing dialogue, characters, banter, relationships, all that kind of stuff. Description is a little bit more difficult for me to come by. I write very short. I write clean, but I write short. And so what I usually have to do is go back and fill it up with description. And because of that, I have taught myself quite a few things on working with description in writing. And so I wanted to pass those on to you. Some of the things that have worked for me to help me build up my basis of how to write description better. And the first tip that I have for you is to work out the details. So you want to make sure that there are details in there. Instead of like saying that, a grass is green, describe what kind of green. The sky is not blue, it's some kind of blue. The clouds are this color, they look like this. They're fluffy, they look like cotton balls, like whatever. It doesn't have to be so mediocre. But you want to think about details. Details are what makes the description that you're writing come to life. Don't overwhelm your reader with details, but do give them enough of a sense of detail that they can actually picture it in their minds. A good kind of, not the tip, but an actionable thing that you can do to train yourself better at this is to look at either a painting and write down every single small detail that you find in it, or a photograph, or when you're watching a movie, just take out your phone or notepad, whatever you're comfortable with using, and look at the scene and describe the scene just using the details. So like red door, cracked wallpaper, like things like that. Write all those down and then see how that scene makes more sense with those details in it. When you think about those details, if those details bring that scene to life for you. And the same goes for when you're writing the details in your descriptions in your novel or your short story or whatever it is you're writing. The second tip is you want to build up the description slowly. So you don't want to just dump your main description. Let's say you're talking about a room or an area of some sort, a library, for example. You don't want to just absolutely bring your reader in and say, okay, this is what it looks like. That's what's happening on this wall. On that wall, there's a shelf here. There's a bunch of books here. Some books are on the ground. Somebody has a table. There's a person that coughed in the back. That's a lot for a reader to take in. It's over describing at this point. You want to slowly describe the space. So picture yourself walking into the room as you would. You're not going to see the room in full. You're not going to see the library in full. What you might see is maybe one shelf of books, or you might see the reception desk and the person sitting there. Describe them first. Take a break, take a breather, go back to something else. Then describe a different part of the room. So you want to build it up slowly. And as you build it up slowly, that's when you start adding more and more detail. So at the beginning, the person who's walking into this room, your character, or your reader in this case, who's seeing it from their point of view, they're going to see the big picture. What are they going to see? Books, a library, a person at the reception desk. As they move closer, they might see other things. They might notice that the carpet under their feet hasn't been vacuumed in a while. So they can see footprints that people have left behind. They might see a garbage pail that's overwhelmed with papers. They might see a broken photocopier with a sign that says it's broken on the side. Then they move in a bit more. And now they start to see even more details. They sit down on the desk. They notice that it's oily from fingerprints from whoever sat there before. So as you can see, you're building up more and more details and building up more and more description as your reader walks further into the area, into the room. Now I'm giving a room as an example because it's just an easy way to show how to describe a room. And a library is something we are all familiar with. Ta-da, right behind me. And so it's an easy way to give those examples. Now, as you're building on this description, and this is now come to tip number 3. And for me, tip number 3 is probably one of the most important ones. You hear me talk a lot about walls. So you hear me talk about dialogue walls, monologue walls, interiority walls, description walls. So what do I mean by that? I just mean that it's text, that it's very rich and heavy in one specific type of writing. And so if you have a dialogue wall, that usually means like a full page of just dialogue, right? With nothing in between, just talking, quotation, quotation, quotation. If you have a description wall, then it's a full page or two, or however many, that is all just prose and description and heavy set paragraphs. That is a lot to put on the reader. A, it slows down the pace. B, it makes them want to skip paragraphs, and you don't want them, especially if you're filling parts of your description with certain details that might become important later or might relate to character. Or if you're writing a mystery, there might be clues there. You don't want your reader skipping that. And so avoid walls. And how do we do that? So you can break up walls of description with dialogue. You can break up walls of description with inner monologue. You can break up walls of description with shorter sentences. So if you have a big paragraph fully describing this library, for example, break it up and put a sentence that there was a noise, that somebody coughed, a cough interrupts them, right? Like that's a short sentence, a cough interrupts them. Now your character has to turn around and look at something else and do something else. So you're breaking up the dialogue wall with action. Try to intersperse different types of styles of writing in between your dialogue in between your description or your dialogue, so you don't get these walls, because the walls get repetitive and they get frustrating for the reader and it makes them want to skip. And we don't want that. We want the reader immersed and interested in every single word. We want them hanging on our words. And you do that by giving them other things to think about. You want to take them out of it, bring them back in, take them out of it, bring them back in. And that's going to keep them reading and guessing. Tip number 4 is leave things out. So we talked about giving details. We talked about giving too much details. Feel free to leave things out, especially if this is something you're describing that you can also add to the description later. If you're describing a person and the way they look. When I meet a person for the first time, I don't just go up and down and I note every single thing, all right, so they've got blue hair with a streak of red, and they've got green eyes, and they've got long eyelashes, but then on this one eye, a couple are missing, and there's a scar on their face, and now I'm going further down. Oh, there's a scarf they're wearing, and now there's a suit. And you don't do that when you meet a person. Or maybe if you're maybe secretly a serial killer, but usually you meet a person and you kind of get a glimpse of them. And so some things are left out right away. And as you talk to them more, as you meet them more, or as you're in a space more, you notice more things, right? So you don't see everything right away. It's okay to leave some parts of the description out for later. Intersperse your descriptions of similar areas, of similar people. It's fine to keep the reader guessing, and it's also fine to let the reader fill in parts of the description by themselves. So you want to give details, which is important, and I know it sounds like I'm going against that, but I'm not, because let's say if we're talking about the library again, for example, and we're talking about a desk in the library that has a bunch of books on it, we can just say that the books have torn spines. We don't need to tell them what the books are about. Later on, you can mention that your characters notice one of the books says this and this in the title, right? So that's a detail that we've left out at the beginning and came back to later. It's okay to do stuff like that, because it means that you're not just info dumping a description on a person. The same way you would with a backstory or a history of a place. You don't want to info dump your descriptions either. So now number 5 is to use all the senses. And this really helps with leaving things out, because when you're using your description, it doesn't just have to be visual. I know we rely heavily on visually things because we are visual people. And people in general, for descriptions, you describe things that you see, but you can also describe things that you hear. You can describe things that you smell, that you touch. There's all different, that you feel, right? There are all different senses that your reader, in place of your character, can notice in wherever they are in order to add to that description. So don't be afraid to use all the senses. In fact, use them quite well. You don't just want to see, okay, so if they see something, let's say that they walk into this library, maybe it's not what they see first. Maybe the first thing they smell is a musty smell of paper, old paper in the air, right? Maybe it makes them sneeze. Maybe they start getting kind of suffocated because there's so many things around and they're starting to feel claustrophobic because the shelves go all the way to the ceiling and they're full of old stuffy books, right? So use your senses. Really envelop your character in your description, because that's really going to come across the page. And this goes back to showing, not telling. A lot of times we wonder what showing, not telling is, and using your senses is a really great way of showing and not telling, because you're not going to tell your reader that, hey, they're in the library, they're standing, there's lots of books, and they're not feeling great about it. Whatever it may be. But you're going to describe how they feel when they're in there. And because of how they feel and everything that's going on in their body, like the nose getting kind of itchy from so much dust in the air and the smell of old books, permeating their senses, their their eyes might be getting itchy and watery because there's no open windows, things like that. And that gives you the sense of what this library is like. And you start to understand like, hey, I remember being in the library kind of like this, or, you put yourself in the same position. The next step you want to do is you use your characters to describe. So this goes back to using all the senses. But another way that you can use your character to describe, other than just having them like experience the place, really, think of it as like a sensory experience that they're having. But you can have them interact with other characters and mention things. Or as they're moving about the space, they can do stuff with it. They can pick up a book if they're in this library. They can skim through the pages. They can put it back. It could fall down. They could pick it up, bump into something else. So you use their actions and use the way they move around areas or other characters. Let's say if you're doing a description of a person, use how your character that's meeting this person for the first time interacts with them, right? Like maybe this person that they're meeting has a very distinct, like we mentioned, a scar across their face. So your character might be trying to avoid making eye contact with that scar so as not to draw attention to it. Maybe the other character is not comfortable with it. Maybe every time that your main character looks at this character's scar, they look away, right? And so you're starting to describe the personality of this character, not just the way they physically appear. And this is a really good way to do it. So interactions with the environment, with other characters really help with push description forward. And then my last tip for you is word choice. So be very specific in the word choice that you are picking. So saying that somebody has, let's say, untrimmed nails is very different from saying that they have gnarly talons that look like they might scratch somebody's eyes out, right? So words make a difference. That was very like off the top of my head kind of thinking about it. But things like that, right? You can, instead of saying that when you go outside it's very bright because it's summer, you could say that the bright light blinded me, and the smell of freshly cut grass made me want to sneeze. Again, I'm sneezing. I don't know. I've been sneezing a lot because of being sick, but you get the idea. Choose your words wisely when you're doing these descriptive passages and use them in a way that makes it much more concise. You don't necessarily need to have like 20 words to describe one thing. You could have one word that is very specific to describe that same thing and describe it much better. Word choice is also important if you're using similes, comparisons, things like that. Anything that brings all of these different elements of your description in a way that the reader can comprehend. So something that jars a different memory for them. I am currently writing, so one thing I will give you an example because this is something that my alpha reader really enjoyed in the book that I'm currently writing, and I have these made up basically like beasts and monsters in there, and I was trying to, the quickest way to describe them as possible. They have long dangly limbs that kind of snap in different directions, and the way that I described it is the main character remembers street performers walking around on stilts. And so right away, you know that these limbs are like these long, spiky kind of like sticks, basically, that this beast and this monsters are walking on. And so my alpha reader said that they immediately knew what I was talking about because of the word choice that I used to describe the comparison between the stilt walking street performers and the legs of these beasts. So think of word choice. And that's pretty much kind of like the main big things. Obviously, there's more. And as you start writing, you're going to see that the way you use your description between different genres will really change. Like in something, like I said, like in a cozy mystery, your descriptions are going to be very cute, very sweet. They're all about like the smells, the touch, and everything has to be cozy and very, very warm. And in something like a fantasy, you might have more epic descriptions of things that are just out of our world, in something like sci-fi, your descriptions could be very technical, right? So every genre is going to have its own way of writing descriptions. But as far as like an overall tips goes, I think these are my top 7 that I usually fall back on when I'm trying to write very good descriptions. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not going to do like a super, super long And outro today, just because I can feel a cough and a sneeze coming. Wish me luck in this signing. I do hope to see you there if you're around. If you're in the Ontario area, make sure you comment, because I'd love to meet more viewers. And maybe if we build up enough of like a base, maybe we can do some meetups once in a while of like fellow writers who watch this channel, or anything, something like that. So do let me know and post it below. And as always, post any ideas that you have that you want me to talk about in future videos. And with that, I hope you all stay magical, and I hope you stay cool, because it's gosh darn hard. Gosh darn. What am I 100 years old? It's damn hot out there. So I hope you stay cold, stay cool, stay hydrated, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye.